welcome to our Christmas special number 3.
Yeah.
So you got more decorations up now?
I do. I added a few because we're getting closer to Christmas, and I wanted to amp it up a little bit. So I added this little. It's still not quite up to your level, I don't think, because you got a big ass tree there.
I got 3 kids who were insisting on decorating like last week. So
nice.
We got the tree outside is all decorated. I don't quite have the outside lights settled yet, but
yeah,
we'll get there.
Yeah, I usually have a rule of not decorating for Christmas till after Thanksgiving, but I'm willing to make an exception in this case.
Yeah. To me, November 1st is the start of
November 1st. Yeah.
Like, not that I discount Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving to me, it's like a big holiday season. You know, we get through Halloween. That kind of kicks everything off because my kids love Halloween. So we start, like, Halloween kind of like kicks everything off. And then we go into this month of, like, you know, preparations and thankfulness and, like, really thinking about the holiday and thinking about what we're doing and making plans. And we try and get most of our shopping done before Black Friday, just that we're not dealing with, like, the craziness. So we're almost done. I mean, we're recording this before Thanksgiving.
Right.
So we're almost done with our shopping. I think we have a couple of things that we need to build. You know, like we're building my daughter a like little wardrobe for her costumes because she has all these princess costumes that she's been getting. And then my son, we're getting him an online video game, Minecraft, for Christmas.
Okay.
For the computer, because he only plays on PlayStation, but he wants to learn some coding stuff, and that he needs a computer for. So we're going to put it on the computer for him. So, yeah, we're excited about that. And I didn't think about the fact that he might hear this before actual Christmas. Because this is going to air before Christmas. And he just listened to my podcast.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Maybe, I don't know, whatever. Let it go.
Yeah. Do some editing. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's good. Yeah. It's good stuff. So, nice. Yeah. And this week we're talking about
Breaking Bad. One of the greatest TV series, honestly, ever created. I mean, it's widely regarded as one of the best out there.
I'm trying to think what would be better than this right now. And I don't know if there's other shows that I may enjoy more or have been or were on longer or stuff like that. But they're not as good because there's literally like no fluff to the show. No. They just made the seasons however long they wanted to make them, and they did what they wanted to do. You know, they did stretch it out a little bit because the last season they stretched out for 2 years.
Two parts, yeah.
Yeah, they released it, and that kind of irked me because they did the longest. It was their longest season. Technically, it's 16 episodes. Most of the seasons were around 13. The first season was 7. So why didn't they just do 2 8-season episodes or 8 episode seasons? Yeah. You know, why didn't they just go season 5, season 6? Why did they have to go season 5 and then season 5 part 2? It makes no sense. So it literally airs 11 months afterwards.
Yeah.
It was an 11-month break.
See, I didn't even know about that till you mentioned right here, because I did not watch the show when it was airing. That was my question for you. When did you first watch this show? Was it when it was airing or after?
Yeah, I was watching this when it was airing. I didn't. The 3rd season had just started.
Okay.
And I was visiting a friend in New Mexico, actually.
Yeah, ironic. Yeah.
In Albuquerque.
Wow.
And he wanted to get on the show because they filmed it there. You know, and he was like, "You got to see the show," and it's just funny because he's a big pastor dude. You know, he was like in his 50s or 60s, and he's a pastor, and he's all like, "No, you have to see the show." So he's the one who introduced me to Breaking Bad. Alan Hawkins, shout out to you. Mm-hmm. So I watched the first episode of the 3rd season, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" just blown away by the quality of the show. So I came back, and got the first 2 seasons. I can't remember if I bought them on DVD. If I did buy them on DVD, I don't own them anymore, or if I found some place to stream them or somebody to borrow them from. But I watched the first 2 seasons, and then the rest of it, I kind of regretted doing that because the rest of it I had to watch live. So there were long gaps between the seasons.
Yeah.
Like you'd get like 8 weeks, 10 weeks of a show, and then look at the gaps on some of these are insane. Like I feel like they just took a long time. Like so season 3 ended on June 13th, 2010. And then the next one, July 17th, 2011. So it was more than a year between season 3 and season 4. And that's what the gun in Gale's face. That's the episode ends with Jesse pointing the gun in Gale's face. So that's how season 3 ends. Oh my God. You know?
Yeah.
And then the same thing, like you have a year between season so it ended in like September, and then you have to wait until July of 2012.
Right.
But then they cut that season in half. It was 8 episodes. You had 8 weeks of show, and then you had to wait for a whole year to finish it. And the revelations just kept coming in the show. It's just like, it was so, they kind of paint it as like an everyman kind of thing, you know, the show, like, oh man, anybody could end up in this.
Right. It has a very grounded nature to it. Like it's something you feel like, oh, this could happen. Like this could happen. And that's the thing, is they were dealing with very real stuff that was happening on the border. You know what I mean? Like with crime and people coming over, and like these gang issues and the drug problems, and meth was a big problem down in Albuquerque at the time. And I don't know if it still is, but it was then. So I don't know. It's just, you literally feel for the characters, even though like they're bad guys. And this was my introduction into kind of this genre. So I watched this show, and in between watching this show, because there were such big breaks, somebody introduced me to S.H.I.E.L.D. Okay.
So I started watching The S.H.I.E.L.D. with Michael Chiklis, and that is another great show, similar to this vein. It's about cops, though. Okay. It's about crooked cops, which is really good. I recommend that if you haven't seen it. And then one of the guys who worked on that show created this other show called Sons of Anarchy, which is about a biker gang.
Yes.
And that's another show that's in the same vein as this, where it's like you got these anti-heroes who you're feeling for and following, and like, oh my God. And they're shows that you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
They're like, and they're not like The Walking Dead is a show where you don't know what's going to happen. But for me, it got to a point, and I think I've said this before, where the show just became a killer. Like, oh, they're going to kill off everyone. Same thing with Game of Thrones. And that's what I don't like about those shows, is the fact that like it's such a level of no safety that it's not actually enjoyable anymore. Whereas in this show, you literally don't know what's going to happen. Like no one's safe, but there's still this thing where you're thinking, oh, they're going to get through. But wait, are they or aren't they? Right. I swear to God, they were going to kill Hank off in season 3. It was going to happen. I watched that episode called 1 Minute. He was going to die in that episode. There's no way he was getting out alive. He was going to die. And spoiler alert, they turned the character around. That was the turning point for that character, because up until then, he was unlikable, not someone you really wanted to cheer for. You know, he had his moments. But for the most part, I didn't care about this guy. But in that moment, I was cheering for that character to survive, and I literally didn't know if he was going to. And from then on out, that character became a much more likable, better character that you needed to see, and you rooted for him from then. So that when he actually does die, when they actually get to the point of his death, you're sitting there going, wait, is this going to happen or isn't it? You really don't know. Right. Are they actually going to be able to get out of it again? You know? And I like that. I like that I like not knowing, you know,
the unpredictability,
not knowing who is going to do what to who, you know, but their reasons always kind of making sense. So
Yeah,
I don't know if
character motivations were strong. The performances, the actors. This was such a well cast series. We could talk about Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston all night long. He is just phenomenal in this role. He was almost like born to play this role. Like I can't. It's one of those roles where you can't really imagine anyone else in that role. It's him. He is Walter White.
Yeah.
What did I want to say here? You were mentioning, this kind of goes into a little bit of trivia, but it fits really well with what you were saying. You were saying about them killing Hank, in the third season. Originally, what I found out was the first season was originally going to be 9 episodes, but then like the Writers Guild strike happened in 08 and 09, and that limited the first season to 7 episodes.
Okay, that would kind of make sense because the season ends in a weird way.
Yeah.
And then the first 2 episodes of season 2 kind of fit in with that story arc. That makes a lot of sense.
The creator, Vince Gilligan, his initial plan before the writer strike happened, his initial plan was actually to kill off either Jesse or Hank in the first season. That's kind of like a ballsy moment to end the first season. But the shorter season had eliminated the idea. And looking back on it, Gilligan said in an interview he was very thankful for that because the acting he said he would have shorthanded their performances because of how well they did in later seasons. He's very glad that actually in that case actually worked to the favor of the show that he ended up not killing off either of them in the first season.
Yeah, it would have been a very, very different show, I think, if they'd been killing off characters that early. I think it would have been a very different show.
And he also, he said he even went as far as saying like the strike actually ended up saving the show because once the strike happened, he had to readjust like the pacing of the show. Like if the strike hadn't happened, he was originally planning to have he was going to basically paint Walt as the villain in almost the first season, like at the end of the first season. So it would have been really rushed. And the rewrites that had to happen after the strike basically gave him time to readjust the pacing for it, and it just flows. That's something. This series it flows so organically. To see the transformation of Walter White throughout the seasons it's just so well crafted. The writing is just phenomenal.
It's such a slow burn.
Yes,
it's
absolutely
beautiful and fun to enjoy.
Yeah,
you're not sitting there at any point being like, oh my gosh, I wish they would. Well, okay. There may be some scenes where you're like, wow, this is kind of dragging on because they do like their breakfast moments where they're kind of awkward silence,
right.
But for the most part, the show just flows really, really well.
Yeah. And this is a show like I sometimes have trouble with darker shows and the fact that I can't binge watch them. So like when I was watching this, I first watched this series back in like middle of 2019. So about 2 years ago. And it was a show like unlike other shows, I could not watch an episode every single night. If there was a particularly dark episode, like I had to give myself at least a day, maybe 2 to continue on. So I did not binge this in a very short amount of time. It took me, I'm not sure, a couple months to actually go through it because I wanted to take my time. And also like, I just didn't want to be in that space every single day. I wanted to give a little bit of time between episodes because it does get pretty dark.
So how many times have you seen it?
I only saw it once the whole way through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I've rewatched certain scenes because there's so many good scenes in this series. I've rewatched certain scenes several times, but the actual from start to finish, I've only watched it once.
And I was lamenting that I didn't have time to do a rewatch.
Yeah, when I was
prepping
for this podcast, I was like, oh man, I really want to go back and rewatch this. But again, because it is 5 seasons or 5, almost basically 6. And it's like they're 45 minute episodes. It's not one you can just sit down in a week and watch,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this show is just so well crafted. And
it's such a defined arc for every character. Like every character grows into there's not a character left behind. I mean, you may be wondering why. Oh, what's her freaking name? The sister.
Skylar's sister.
Skylar's sister. Why she's stealing stuff.
Is it Julia? Is it? No, that doesn't sound right.
I cannot remember.
But yeah, I know who you're talking about, though.
She's kind of like a bit player almost. I mean, that's how I feel remembering her, but I feel like maybe that isn't fair.
Yeah.
Because she seemed like she was she seemed more important than Skylar at certain points.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, but now I don't know. I remember hating Skylar the whole time. Marie,
yes, that's right. Yeah. Ugh.
yeah.
Yeah, this show was nominated for 16 Emmys. I know 16. I consider that a lot, 16, but I mean, yeah, 16.
Okay,
and
well, I heard the other day that Frasier was nominated for like 117 or something like
really?
that. Like, yeah, I was like, what?
But see, I haven't watched the Emmys in a while, so I don't know how
it won 16 primetime Emmys.
Okay,
it won 16 Emmys.
No. Breaking Bad I think I saw it got nominated for 16. Did it actually win? I thought
it says on IMDb that
then it got nominated for a bunch of others. Okay, I missed that. Yeah, and I know I always pull in IMDb's audience ratings or whatever, but it's IMDb top TV number 3 with a 9.4 out of 10 rating. So that's out of 1.6. That's a good question. That's a good question. Let me fact check that real quick. I should have looked that up before. Top rated TV number 3. Oh, Planet Earth 2 and Planet Earth. So we're talking that's like documentary, right?
Yeah, those are documentary type
shows. So Band of Brothers is right below it. Then Chernobyl is number 5. And The Wire is number 6.
The first year, it won 2 and was nominated for 4. The second year, it won 2 but was nominated for 5. Let's see. These are just Emmys. The third year, it won 2 but was nominated for 7. And then the fourth year, it won only 1, which was when Aaron Paul got his win for supporting actor.
Oh, gotcha.
The scene I think he won for was when he was, because I remember that scene. It was him in the hospital after Hank had beat him up.
Okay, yeah.
And he's basically telling off, what's his face? He's telling Bryan Cranston's character off. He's telling Walt off and saying, get out of my life, you're poison. Mm-hmm. But that year it was nominated for, let me see if I can get this count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it was nominated for 13 that year and won 1.
Wow.
And then 1, 2, 3. It won 3 in 2013. It was nominated for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 others. So 12 that year, 12 that year. And then the last year, it won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Emmys that last year. It was nominated for 10 others. So it was nominated for 15 their last year.
That's a lot of Emmys.
It's a lot of Emmys. Yeah. In the last year, they won lead actor in a drama series, lead supporting or best supporting actor, best supporting actress, outstanding writing, outstanding drama series, and outstanding single camera picture editing.
Gotcha.
Was what they won for their last year. And then they were nominated for pretty much every other category, it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, even like the cinematography. I mean, we talked about the performances, but like the technical style, the technical elements of it, the cinematography is fantastic as well. Like it's just an all around well-rounded show.
Yeah. It's
great
a great
direction.
Show. I can't recommend it enough. It does have, there are a couple episodes with things to be wary of as far as like content wise. They do. Yeah. This was a show that redefined how television was done, because they literally built the fines that they were going to get into their budget. So they just said, we're doing whatever we want. Yeah. We're dropping F-bombs and we're doing, but it was about the integrity of the show. You know, it wasn't like HBO where they're just like, hey, how can we throw a naked woman into this
Yeah.
episode? Which is what you get with HBO series. Whereas this episode, this was like, how can we make the best possible story, you know? Right. So there's only 2 nude scenes that I know of in the entire series, not including Walt's butt that you see a few times because of cancer treatments.
Yeah.
But the first episode when Jesse's jumping out of the window, there's a topless woman. And then in a later episode when I think season 2, he hires his friends to start selling drugs for them. So, and they make so much money that they go out to like a strip club and they show like a couple of snapshots of their evening there. And you see, so content wise, there's that. But other than that, it's just good old fashioned violence and drugs and rock and roll. And it's such a high quality. It's here's the thing. To me, it's a great character examination of like what it takes to actually like, because Walt Whitman is no, not Whitman.
Walter White.
Walter White. Yeah. Walter Whitman is the poet that they talk about.
Yes.
In the show. But yeah, Walter White is just such. He seems like a good guy.
He starts out doing, you know, the whole drug meth thing with very noble intentions. You know, it's all about.
Well, that's the thing. So it seems like it's noble intentions, and it seems like he's a good guy. But the reality is, you find out that he just has such deep character flaws that he was pretty much destined to be this. As the show goes on, you realize, wow, no, this was a bitter, angry, kind of nasty person. You know what I mean? Like his marriage was probably destined to fall apart, even if he didn't get involved in drugs. You know, even if he didn't get involved in this thing. You know, he was
unhappy. He was unhappy in his job, right? Because he's a not very well paid chemistry teacher. So
he was just a public school chemistry teacher.
Yeah,
he had to work a second job at a car wash.
Right?
To pay for his life, to take care of his. You know, they have a teenage son who's like 15 years old, and he's got cerebral palsy, so that's not cheap to deal with there. The wife is pregnant with their second child.
Yeah, they have a house.
And then he finds out that he has cancer. And his world basically just starts falling apart because he doesn't know how he's going to – he's literally diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. And he doesn't know how he's going to survive, how he's going to help his family, you know?
I think he's given 6 months, I think.
Yeah, they give him 6 months to live. The entire series takes place over 2 years because it starts on his 50th birthday and ends on his 52nd birthday.
Right.
So we know how long this series goes. And the thing that gets me is how many chances he's given to get out of this.
Yeah.
It just happens over and over, even later on in the series. Like, we're not talking like just the first couple of seasons. We're talking like at the end of the 4th season, he could literally have gone.
Yeah. He got the money that he needed.
He got more than enough money that he needed. His cancer, he was cancer free. Yeah. All his bills were paid for. Everything was golden. Everything was safe. Everybody was okay. He could have just walked away.
But
he didn't.
He liked it. As he says in the end, I liked it and I was good at it. And that ultimately, like he found something that he was really good at, that he excelled in, and that he flat out enjoyed, and he wanted to keep doing it.
And you find like the reasons, like, well, where he ended up in his life too, because like the 4th episode, I think it was. Is it episode 4? First season, episode 4? No, it's episode 5, where they learn about Gray Matter, the company that his his best friend from college has started and is now a multi-billion-dollar company. And he was a part of it in the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
And he left the company because over emotional problems with a girl, you know, and so he left the company. So the girl that he was with stayed with the company, ended up marrying his best friend, and they've made $1 billion off of his idea.
Yeah, and so that also like irks him. Like that's something that's deep down and something that really bothers him.
I mean, that's kind of where the cancer probably even came from, just because his emotional, bitter, angry, nasty state. You find out this isn't a nice, mild-mannered guy.
On the outside, it appears that way.
On the outside, he appears that way, but he's actually just a weak person who can't handle his stuff and ends up in this life that's happened to him instead of taking charge of things. And I mean, so he becomes a strong person, but he decides to go bad with it. You know what I mean? That's like the whole thing. So as he becomes a stronger person, he doesn't go on a hero's journey. He goes on a villain's journey. But there's several points where he could walk away from this.
Yeah.
Like in that 5th episode, his buddy goes, look, man, this is your business. Come back, join us, be part of the business again. You know, don't walk in as an employee, walk in as a full partner where you deserve to be. You know, boom. And he goes, and not to mention, we have great health insurance on top of that, you know? And he goes, and his pride stops him from saying yes. He literally has an out right there. He'll make all the money he deserves to make, millions of dollars. He'll be getting his health paid for. He'll be able to pay for all his cancer treatments and everything covered. Doesn't have to go into doing this life of crime thing. But his pride gets in the way, and the character just keeps going for it.
Yeah.
There's a couple other sections like that, through season 2. I think he has like 2 more points, and that's like shortly after Tuco's killed. They get out there. They can get out there. They can walk away scot-free after that. Yes. But they don't. They go back into it. And he actually convinces Jesse to go into it. You know, he convinces Jesse. And then there's what's the other point? There's one other point in that season where he could have just walked away again. I think it's, what was it? Can't remember exactly what it was, but it's like, I think Gus just wants to buy him out in that season. He doesn't really wants to deal with them. He just wants, give me the product you have and then we'll be done. I'm not dealing with you as a businessman because I don't trust you what you bring to it, but I'll buy your product, you know?
Right.
And he could have been done with it there, but he doesn't. He has to go into it more and more. And you asked me earlier, when does he become the villain?
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Where does he cross the moral line and start becoming the villain? Where is there a point? But what point is that?
The point that he becomes a villain, I feel, is the season finale of season 2.
Okay.
The episode ABQ, where Jane is lying there.
Yep, go ahead.
She's lying there. She's aspirating. She's choking on her own vomit.
Yeah.
And he stands there and chooses to let her die because he feels like she's in the way. She's keeping Jesse away from him. Yeah. So he lets her die so that he can get Jesse back, instead of letting Jesse go away and get better and have a girlfriend and have a life where he can take his money and do what he wants with it.
That is the exact moment that I wrote down. Watching Jane die. When I first saw that, when I was first watching this series, I was like, okay, that crosses the line. He is now he's a different person. Like
you still have moments where he like kind of comes back on this side of the line, but he's very easily crosses over and over again. Yeah. He just goes back and forth across the line with ease. It's no longer a problem for him to cross that line. Whereas up until this point, like, killing Crazy 8 was practically self-defense, you know, like, the guy was chained down, but he was still trying to kill him, and he had instigated that interaction. You know what I mean? Like when Crazy 8 and his partner came and tried to rob them and threatened to kill them and everything, like, the guy died because he was a gangster and living a crappy life, you know? So to me, that and even what he does with Tuco, and like, so at that point, not quite villain yet, definitely doing bad things, but still someone who can come back. But when he lets Jane die, that's literally the point where it's like,
Yeah.
Now you're willing to hurt people who are not involved in anything just because they're in your way. That's when you become a villain.
And because she was blackmailing him, because she, she knew about him and was blackmailing him, and then he knew her being out of the way would benefit
But she
him.
didn't really know. She didn't really know. She knew little bits, but
okay. I thought I remembered she I thought she had actually full out was threatening to expose him.
Oh yeah, she was threatening that, but I honestly don't think she knew enough.
Okay.
At that point, that like nobody knew enough to actually do anything to him until like season 3 or 4, except Jesse. Jesse knew.
Yeah.
And I guess her being an influence on Jesse would cause that to be possibly a serious threat. But the reality is he's still so caught up in the fact that he's getting these cancer treatments. He's still considered a mostly decent person by his family and all that.
Right.
That I don't think Jesse accusing him of being this Heisenberg meth king would have landed. I don't think it would have been taken seriously by the cops.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really enough proof, so I don't think she was as much of a threat as he was even acting like she was, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that scene, that it's just heart wrenching to watch. Just, oh man. Yeah, that's season 2, I think. Yeah, season 2, episode 12. Yeah, ABQ is the finale. Yep. Oh, and one could argue also that where was I seeing that T also wanted her out of the way to kind of protect Jesse also at the same time, because he saw she was addicted to heroin, and do you think he was afraid also Jesse would become addicted to heroin and she would kind of take out Jesse at the same time? Like, I could also see that as a motivation.
You can see it as a motivation, but I don't think he ever actually cared. I don't think he really cares about Jesse till towards the end of the series. He's using Jesse at this point because he doesn't know enough about the industry, and Jesse's got all the contacts. He has
so
at this point, he's trying to build his own connections, and Jesse's actually kind of hurting him because Jesse has all the product and everything. And so he's like trying to get it to Gus, and he, ends up not able to do it. Or I think he does do it, but he has to scramble and ends up missing his daughter's birth and stuff like that. So he gets mad at Jesse over that and refuses to give Jesse his money until he cleans up. And that's when the blackmail came in. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's this whole thing where it's always like he always blames other people, but he kind of causes these situations himself. He's not able to take on responsibility for any of his actions. He's always like,
it's always someone else.
You did this to me and you screwed this up. And you see it, they do it really wonderfully in this episode where they get stuck out in they decide to do a big cooking batch. I think that's also in season 2. Yeah. And they go out into the wilderness and they're cooking all day. And then the Winnebago dies on them.
Yes. And they lose power. Yeah.
And the entire episode, he's blaming Jesse for everything. He's getting down on Jesse for everything. And, he fixes the problems that Jesse causes. But realistically, if you go back and watch it, he's kind of the cause of each of these little problems because he's not actually being precise with his words, being clear with his words, or actually double-checking things he should be double-checking on. You know what I mean? Like, how are we getting power to this Winnebago? Well, we have the gas running right now, like I don't know. It's not. It wasn't the fact that the gas was running. It's the fact that they just had the key turned, so it was running the power.
Yes, right, and that's when it
instead of actually having it turned on. So it's like when the engine's running on that, like he should have been able to pick up on that, and but he so often blames. He's the one who sucked Jesse into this. Yeah. They were done in season 1. They were done.
And Jesse wanted to be done.
And he keeps coming back to him and forcing him to get back into it.
Yeah.
Tricking him to get into it. The one that really tore me up was when he forced Jesse to be the one to take down Gil.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that's because he ended up caught by Gus. So he had to have Jesse go do it instead of him doing it.
Mm-hmm. And that ripped Jesse, literally, it ripped him apart emotionally.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, Jesse hadn't killed anybody yet.
Mm-hmm. That's
Jesse
true.
wasn't really. I mean, he was embracing the bad guy thing, but it was more of a, I'm the bad guy because I sell drugs. It wasn't, I'm the bad guy. It wasn't, I'm the one who knocks in the night. I'm the one who knocks.
I'm the one who knocks. Yeah. That's a great scene.
Threatening your own wife and kid and telling them it's for their own good. And it's,
yeah. How many times he says, I'm doing this to protect our family. I think Skylar even points out, if I hear you say that one more time,
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, so I think about that stuff all the time. Okay, I'm doing X, Y, Z for the family, but are you actually doing it? Am I actually doing certain things for my family, or am I doing it in spite of my family? You know what I mean? Like, and that's a real thing. Like, guys can get in this situation where they're like, if they're the breadwinner, they're looking at, oh, I'm working so much. I do everything I do. Everything I do is for you. And I come home and it's not good enough, blah, blah, blah. Those types of lines.
Yeah.
But realistically, it's like, you still need to be present when you get home. And if you're doing all that stuff for the family, but when you get home, it's crappy in hell for your family for you to be there. Maybe it's not actually the best thing to be doing for your family, like working crazy long 80-hour weeks or whatnot to the point where you don't actually get to see them at all. Or you're tired the entire time you're spending time with them. Get out of that situation. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
You may think you have to do it, or maybe you just have to live a smaller life. That's kind of what we did, which is kind of funny to say because we're living a smaller life in a much larger house right now. But yeah, so I love, the show is just so good. I don't even know what else to say about it.
Like we were saying, just watching the transformation, I did want to bring out a little quote that Vince Gilligan had said. He said, it's addressing the Walter White going from the protagonist and going from the anti-hero into the villain. He said, television is historically good at keeping its characters in a self-imposed stasis so that shows can go on for years or even decades. When I realized this, the logical next step was to think, how can I do a show in which the fundamental drive is toward change? And that nails it right on the head. I mean, this is a show about the change of its main character from a hero, from our protagonist to the hero to the villain. Watching that play out organically over several seasons it's fascinating to watch.
And that's what I like about Sons of Anarchy and The Shield, because they kind of do a similar thing, but in a different way. So, like The Shield has basically a very crooked cop from the get-go who's trying to convince himself that he's actually the good guy. So he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy from the beginning of the series. And he's trying to prove that he's a good guy. So he's moving towards trying to be a good guy, trying to be legit and everything. But it doesn't work, And then you have Sons of Anarchy, where you have a villain who finds, not villain. He's a biker dude. They're, considered one of the 1% gangs, so they're not like actual. So they're outlaws. They do illegal things, and it's kind of known but not known. And he's finds out that his father, who's dead, had other plans for the biker group and didn't want to go this route. So he starts trying to change things for the better and making it more of a legitimate business. So you have a bad guy who's now trying to be a good guy and making moves towards it. And everything he does just takes him into that villain point. Like he's actively trying to not be this, but he becomes it anyways.
Yeah.
Which is similar to that movie that we saw. Did you finish the book?
Yes, I did. I mean, I finished it before we watched the movie.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you finished the whole thing or not before we saw the movie.
Yep.
So, I don't know. Is there anything more you want to say about Breaking Bad?
I was just going to ask you if you had a favorite scene from the series, or scenes.
My favorite scene would be when the twins come to get Hank. That last like 60 seconds of the episode where it's just, oh my gosh, it is like the most tense. It's the most tense minute in
it
television
is so
history. You have no idea what's going to happen. You're sitting there, and I mean, I guess I've kind of spoiled it, but it's still such a great show.
Yeah.
Great moment that, my God, you got to see this.
It's biting your fingernails, suspenseful. I remember that specifically watching that. Like you said, you genuinely do not know what's going to happen to this character. It's
these guys have been doing stuff. Like they've been leaving a trail of bodies behind them, so you know that they're bad people,
right? You know what they're capable of, and
it's not like you don't know what they can do. Like
yeah.
And oh my gosh, it was just priceless.
Yeah.
So that would probably be my favorite scene. There's that one. What else would there be?
I mean, I like the scene where Hank discovers that Walt is Heisenberg when he's sitting on the toilet, and he makes the connection. And then
one of the reviewers actually pointed out that scene wouldn't work today because this takes place back in 2008.
Right.
The whole series does. So he's like, that wouldn't work today because everyone has a smartphone. He wouldn't have been reading the book.
There would be no magazine. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a legitimate point there. And then when he confronts him in the garage, and I just this
that
is
confrontation
a
in the garage, yes.
Just a major. This is just a major applause for Cranston's performance. Whenever he says the way he shifts from Walt to Heisenberg when he delivers the line, maybe your best course would be to tread lightly. The way the tone in his voice shifts is just it's just a fantastic performance.
Yeah, because he's like, I don't even know what I'm dealing with here, and he's like, well, if you don't know what you're dealing with, then maybe your best course of action would be to tread lightly.
Yeah,
it's like
that's Heisenberg. That's just and it's very subtle, but it's brilliant, and it works so well. So there's that scene, and then we were talking about this a little bit before we started about Hank's his death scene there, and his final line being to Walt, "You're the smartest guy I ever met, and you're too stupid to realize he made up his mind 10 minutes ago." Yeah. It's a great line, and the fact that also a little subtle thing they do that makes it even more shocking and heart-wrenching is the fact that he shoots him mid-scene. Jack shoots him mid-sentence. So he cuts him off. It's just a little subtle, but it adds all the more heart-wrench to it. It's just It reminded me, there was a scene, and I'm not sure if you've ever seen NCIS, but there was a scene in NCIS early on in the series where Kate is shot. One of the main characters, one of the central agents, she's shot like when she's speaking mid-sentence from a sniper. And it was like a very shocking scene because she's literally talking mid-sentence, and all of a sudden she's out. And so it's just, it just makes it all the more shocking. And it's just, overall, and then to see Walt's again, Cranston's reaction to that, and just, it's just such a well acted, well crafted show.
So now we're going to segue into our special bonus Christmas episode right here.
Yeah.
And that is, we're going to talk about Dune.
Yeah. Surprise. Dune.
We saw that movie.
Yes.
We wanted to do a live stream about it, but it didn't work out. We didn't have the time.
Yes.
Work. I ended up working so much that week. But so we're going to talk about our thoughts on the movie. Yeah. Compared to the book, and where it's going, and who's going to play Fedru Alpha in the next film, and I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, for me overall, I had read the book. Literally, I read the book for the first time in 2 weeks leading up to the movie, because some of my coworkers were reading it. I was like, okay, if I'm going to see the movie, I think I need to read the book. So I just sat down and read did 60 pages a day, I think, for about 2 weeks, and got through the book in 2 weeks. Yeah. I also had an audiobook to help me. So that was nice because I could listen to it on my drive to and from work. So that was helpful. But overall, this movie, I really liked this movie. It's not my favorite of Villeneuve's movies. That would still probably be Blade Runner 2049. But honestly, I thought this movie was very, very well done. There was certain things I wish had stayed in the movie that were from the book, especially since this is a part 1 of 2 movie. They're splitting the book into 2 parts here, and that is the dinner scene. I really wanted the dinner scene.
The fact that wasn't in there like blew my mind, but they kind of didn't even set the proper groundwork for that scene.
They didn't set it up.
It would not have made any sense because there would have been all these extra characters there, and they would have had to explain what each of the characters does and who they are and why they're on the planet. And like they made it seem like the planet was so sparse when Arakeen is actually full of people. You know, like, it's that scene right there. Pretty much all the political stuff was missing.
Yeah, I remember you saying, right?
Yeah, that bothered me a lot. So, I mean, on my initial reaction, I gave it a thumbs down because, like, to me, it's all about the characters. That's what all of his books are about. They're mostly dialogue. Like when you read them, it's just like back and forth dialogue between different characters because it's all about the characters. It's not as much about the sci-fi action, and we got a lot more sci-fi action than you ever saw in the books. Most of the action, it's similar to J.R.R. Tolkien and what they did with his movies, or with turning Lord of the Rings into movies, is they put a lot more action than is actually described in the books. Because when you read Lord of the Rings, there's action here and there, but the reality is it's not that much. It's more like, okay, and then they had a battle, and then here's what the characters did. You know, that's kind of how the book handles these things, and the main conflicts are actually the people, and they're talking, and the layers upon layers and subterfuge upon subterfuge, and there wasn't even any mention of a traitor in this. You know, like I feel like that would have helped. I think that would have actually helped the movie a little bit more if there was some talk about there being a traitor among us, you know, because there was already some suspect of it. And when Gurney becomes so violent with Paul right at the beginning, in the book, Paul's like, wait, is Gurney the traitor? Is this how this is? Is this possible? You know, the fact that he even doubted Gurney for that second. You know, it's like, dude, that's a big deal. Like, they don't know who they can trust at all. So I don't know. I just missed the fact. I just felt like that was such an important part of the books, and the fact that it's missing from the movies. I don't know. Yeah, just a bit much.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. Some of the political intrigue was gone. I mean, I'm sure they'll bring that in more in the second film because they'll be bringing in what's his name? I mean, the other his nephew
Harkonnen.
Because he was completely absent from this movie.
Yeah, which I understand because they would have had to explain who he is, and he didn't really have anything to do in this movie. Yeah, so it made sense for Raban to be the nephew that they focused on because he actually had stuff to do. You know, he had people to fight, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, on a technical level, I thought Villeneuve did a tremendous job of communicating like the scope of the planet, the desert landscape. Like it was, I'm very glad I saw it when we saw it in IMAX. I'm very glad we saw it in IMAX to kind of, you know, maximize the scope of the film. It was very, very well shot. The production design is fantastic. It should definitely get nominated, if not win, in several technical categories. It was overall, like I liked it. I'm definitely anticipating the second film, which is at this point was not at the time of release, but is confirmed. The second one is officially happening, so that's good. I'm not going to leave us hanging with just a part 1. That would be a bummer. So
yeah, that would be very unfortunate.
From what I've heard, Villeneuve would actually like to do a third film on the second book. This hasn't been it's not officially confirmed that's actually going to happen. Have you read the second book?
I
Or how
actually
much?
started. I'm about 4 chapters into Dune
Okay,
Messiah right now. I started
gotcha.
reading it
Yeah,
today, actually.
okay.
I'm 4 chapters in. I started reading it today.
Yeah. I have some coworkers who are not fans of the second book. They say it gets very. They've told me some of the things that happen in the book. They say it gets very, very weird, very strange, and it just not
They add a whole
quite.
bunch of different elements. You learn more
Yeah.
about the universe that they're in. They introduce the fact that you have the Bene Gesserit because they kind of focus on the parts that you have to deal with in the story.
Yeah.
But there's another thing like the Bene Twi'lek, I think it's called, and these people are shapeshifters. They can turn into other people, so that's a new thing that we're dealing with. And then you have a council of like 4 people. You actually get to see one of the navigators in the first or second chapter of Dune Messiah, and
Okay.
so that they're all misshapen and stuff like that, and what they actually look like. Which, if you saw the old '80s movie, they showed that in like the first couple minutes
Okay. Yeah, I
of the
know.
opening.
I haven't seen the '80s. That's a David Lynch film, I think. I have not seen that one because it covers the entire book, which it's like, isn't it like a less than 2 hour movie? I'm like, how did they cover the entire book?
They cut
Or
it by being very choppy.
just very
It's
okay.
basically like a scene, a scene, a scene, a scene, a scene.
Yeah.
It doesn't cover it well. It's what's his name? David Lynch says
David Lynch. Yeah.
it's his only bad movie, he says.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
But
I don't know.
yeah, so overall, like, what would you grade scale? What would you give Dune?
Honestly, it's hard to judge a part one of anything. So they're going to have
Yeah,
more in the next movie.
that's fair. I mean, that
You
is
didn't
part
really
of
get
it.
to know Cheney very much.
She was
The
literally in
fact that they already did the
flashbacks.
Jameis thing was so quick. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that was actually a complaint of mine because in the book, when I was reading that in the book, it felt like a much bigger deal. It felt like a bigger event. And in the movie, it's like a 5-minute scene, if that.
they make it seem like he's just a hothead who wants to get his revenge, whereas Jameis was like stewing on it for a couple of days, really.
Right.
And then he called them out because they were making these big claims. Basically, he was saying, "Hey, you're full of shit, and I'm calling you out on it." And if they killed him, then they'd be proven right. But if they didn't, then he'd be proven right. And they probably would have killed them both, actually, because he would have been able to best Paul. And that means that she's not who she's claiming to be. And that's where the political thing is coming on, because she's kind of pretending to be something she's not to get in there. Like, there's this little bits of deceit happening for them to get in with the Fremen, where the Fremen have kind of been seeded with these certain ideas by the Bene Gesserit. So they're prepared for her to take advantage of them, basically, and they don't cover any of that stuff in the movie. And it's hard to do. The thing I'm looking at it being like, they're making a TV show for Halo, which could very easily, to cover the story of Halo, you just need like a 2-hour movie. Realistically, you don't need a TV show for Halo, in my opinion. But something like this doesn't get a TV show. This could be
you're right.
Game of Thrones.
This would be a great
TV show, because you'd actually be able to explore all the parts of it. And then at the end of the first season, that's when you realize, oh my God, Yui's the traitor. Like,
you're right.
And then you have 3 seasons to that first book, and then you can literally carry on into the other books. It gets a little weird, but it's still like, what was it? Because his son, what was it? So there's the Children of Dune, and then there's the God Emperor of Dune. By the 4th book, God Emperor of Dune, it's his direct son is in charge now. Leto to the second or something like that, and it's 3,500 years in the future. So it's 3,500 years later, and it's only 1 generation later.
Gotcha.
Because of like what they've done with the spice. So
Yeah.
so when you realize that these characters end up being like practically these, they stuff that they do is just crazy, and the level of practically, like, it's called God Emperor for a reason, because the guy has taken on this persona and has these abilities, So I don't know. I thought visually it was amazing. It was stunning. You got the big sweeping landscapes. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I just felt like there were certain things that they learned in ways that they could have done in other ways. I mean, he has a book on the Fremen in the first couple scenes. That annoyed me because the whole point was the fact that no one knows anything about the Fremen. They're trying to figure them out. They can't learn anything about them. But he has a textbook that's telling him about them. And it's like, dude, no, that was wrong. That's not how it was. Why are you doing this? So I don't know. I just think that there's ways they could have had some level of the subterfuge, unless they're going to just go back and redo it. Who knows what they're going to do with this next movie? Because that's the other thing. Like, his visions are, and they kind of did a good job with that, because they do show like Jameis is in the visions, is in the one vision, and he's like being buddy and a mentor to Paul. But that's not what happens when he meets Jameis. So they're kind of showing that these, like, that they're possible futures. They're not actually the future. And he doesn't know which path to go down or which path is coming to him. So they do a good job of that. They're not just throwing nonsense at you, him seeing Duncan Idaho die and then him trying to stop it. He saw it in a vision and then it happened to him. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'll see. Yeah. I'm curious what they're going to do with that. I kind of hope. I don't know if I hope this. What I suspect they'll do is there's a scene where Fade Rafa fights a gladiator, to show his prowess before the people. Yeah. And it turns out the guy was an Atreides fighting man, so he was from the battle where the Harkonnen struck him down. I kind of hope they find a way to make that Duncan Idaho. Now because right now Duncan Idaho is like the only character that we're really invested in. Maybe Gurney a little bit, but we don't care about Thufir, even though we should. We haven't gotten enough with the Fremen yet to know much about them. So if they had Duncan Idaho come back just to show how nasty this bad guy is, I'd be okay with that. That'd be a change in the story, but I'd be okay with it.
I mean, my brother who had never read the book, like he's just in general, he's a Jason Momoa fan, and he was killing Jason Momoa off pretty. I mean, he's not on screen a lot in this movie, and so that would be that'd be cool to see him back for sure.
He does come back in Dune Messiah.
Yes, as a ghoul, I think they call them. It's a clone,
some type of clone where
I did know that.
It's like a subplot where they're trying to have this thing that's trained to kill Paul. It's like this secret mission thing that they're doing. Plus the one guy imitates the one shapeshifter guy. When he goes to talk to certain people, he takes on the look of Duncan Idaho. That's who he shapeshifts into to talk to them. But so that's interesting. So there's room. So if they made a third movie of Dune Messiah, there would be a lot more for Jason Momoa to do.
Right.
So, I don't know. I'm really curious to see how they go with the second one. I hope it's not, as much as I like Denis Villeneuve's style for what he's done so far, I kind of hope they move away from it a little bit and have a bit more dialogue, that they cover the political stuff a little bit more. That's the other thing that really pissed me off.
What's that?
The Flying Baron.
I mean, that's from the book, though.
No, it's not.
That he levitates.
No, that's not what the Spencers do. That's not what they do. He's so fat that he has to have these things slightly helping him hold his weight up. It doesn't allow him to fly. Right. That's from the 80s movie. They carried that over from the crappy 80s movie where for some reason he's able to fly with these things now. And he doesn't do that in the book. He never flies.
Nice.
It just helps him hold his weight up. And they talk about the fact that in the book, they mention the fact that eventually Beast Raban is going to need those too because him being so large. Mm-hmm. And they talk about Fedor Alpha being someone who's never going to be that large just because he's like leaner, but he's still supposed to be like a bulky person. So Fedor Alpha is still supposed to be like this bulky guy, but not in the way that the other two are, where he's just let himself go so much. Yeah, the flying thing bothered me because they do use the Spencers, like the Sardaukar use them, and in the book, Jessica mentions that we wishes she had them so that they could slow their fall. So there's something that they can use to like make a slow fall from like a height, but it doesn't allow them to fly like they're jetpacks.
Yeah,
they're not jetpacks. They're literally like these things that help you like push against the ground, basically. Like it's not. So that bothered me because it's like they took something from the 80s movie. Granted, they didn't make it as cartoony as it was in the 80s movie and awful, but it was still one of those things of like, why is he flying? What is this?
See, I saw it more as floating / levitating. He wasn't like going up into the sky. He was more like being a couple feet off the ground and moving himself. But
I mean, when he did it in the first time, he did it when he had that big black robe and he's just this like big like snake head looking thing. I don't know. It was just it took me out of it for a minute to be like, what the hell is this? With the over the table, maybe I could have let that slide if they did it that way, but there's this thing with the Baron that they're making him see so scary and intimidating, and he is.
I like that.
I like that, but he's also kind of a buffoon, and he doesn't really. He thinks himself smart, but he doesn't really know everything that's going on. Like Thufir Hawat, when he gets him into his service. Spoiler alert! Sorry, because that's like Thufir ends up switching sides and working for the Harkonnens. Thufir's like, wait, does he really not know the real reason why? You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't know why the Emperor actually allowed him to do this, why he allowed them to kill the Atreides. You know, when he escaped from the room there, he's like completely shaken and nervous and like, oh my God, I almost died. And he's like flustered. You know, he never came off as flustered. He came off as like, oh, I got injured and now I'm still like in control, nasty. And it's like, the guy isn't as put together as he likes to everyone to think he is. So, and like to the point where, I don't know, don't want to spoil everything because of the book, but the way he dies in the book, it's like, really? Like he's not someone who Paul has to take out. You know what I mean? Like that person is Fedor. That's who Paul. That's the one who Paul has to take on because he's the intimidating character, you know. But the Baron is not. To me, he's just not as. I mean, it's like the serious tone. Yes, okay. In that moment, he's intimidating, you know, because he's won. He has his victory there, but there wasn't any crack in the character at all. And to me, I don't know how you do the character in the next movie right if he's just this perfectly brilliant strategist and, oh, I know everything that's going on. You know, I don't know. I could be wrong. Yeah. I'm not really a fan of art house films. I don't think.
I think that's where we're a little different. So I tend to really, really like art house films. So that's why I liked Arrival. I loved Blade Runner 2049. not so much a fan of like some of the older ones, like 2001. Like, although it's a good movie, like it's not one I'm gonna sit down and watch 2001 anytime. But I could sit down and watch Arrival and Blade Runner 2049 pretty much any time.
To me, I feel like they're just. I feel like they're trying to be so like, oh, we're so artsy
Different.
that they come off pretentious rather than having a decent plot that people can understand. You know, like if you have to read a couple novels or textbooks to be able to understand Blade Runner, then maybe it's not actually as quality of a movie as possible. Not that you should play to the lowest common denominator. I'm not saying that, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, Marvel movies are very easy to understand because they're just popcorn flicks, you know. But I just feel like with the sound and the way they're doing things, it's like, dude, I couldn't even hear the dialogue sometimes in the theater because of how overpowering the music was. And it's like, okay, I get it. You're artsy. Now tell me a good story, you know? And I think I know I'm harsh. I'm harsh on movies. I judge them to a level that I don't know. Maybe what I want doesn't exist yet. I hate every movie I've ever made because they're just not to a level that I can create.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm easier on my own work. It was hard. It was very hard in college because I was demanding so much out of the people I worked with that I felt bad sometimes because I was pushing them really hard. And they couldn't deliver. They just couldn't because I wanted Hollywood quality stuff, but we didn't have that equipment. So I don't know. I might be too harsh on the movies, or maybe I build it up, and because I know I can sit down and enjoy pretty much anything for what it is. You know, I can laugh at Adam Sandler. I can watch Marvel movies and enjoy them and not have to overthink how stupid some of the stuff is, you know? And I know upon second, third viewing of this, I'm going to like it, but I just, I don't know.
So you've only watched it once so far.
I've started watching it a second time. I haven't gotten all the way through.
Yeah. That's the same. I want to watch. I'll be watching it, on HBO Max. I don't think I'm going to see it again in theaters, but for sure, at least on HBO Max, I'll be watching it again.
I kind of want to see it in IMAX again, and for one reason.
What's that?
Because something very regretful happened in the theater.
Oh no!
What? I kind of dozed off when the worm came on screen.
Really?
So that big, giant, imposing worm scene that you're supposed to be like, oh my God, it's a sandworm.
Yeah.
I didn't actually see it.
Oh, you fell asleep?
I nodded off.
Wow. Okay.
Not because of the movie, but because I was just tired. I worked so much. I was just tired.
And you drove up there to Lancaster, and
so
that's fair.
But yeah, so I kind of want to go and see it at IMAX again, just actually see it.
Yeah.
Which I probably need to do soon before it's not in theaters.
Right. Especially before, certainly before, Spider-Man 3 would come out. Yeah, that'll take over its spot for sure.
Which you see the new preview? Did you see?
I did. I saw that new trailer. I am so pumped. This is probably no exaggeration, I'm probably the most pumped for this since Endgame. As far as Marvel movies go, like I'm the most pumped for Spider-Man since Endgame.
Yeah.
Like I'm really excited. I speak as a Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. You know how much I love the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films. Just to be able to see, hopefully, I'm cross my fingers, he should be back. I can't imagine he's not going to be. He's going to be there. And
if they're not in it, the fans will revolt. Literally,
he's got to be in it.
Let me put it this way: if they're not in it, I'm giving up on Marvel because I already was kind of like, not so sure about their movies anymore after Endgame. I was kind of like, I don't care to see anything. But with the year break, I kind of was like, okay, maybe. But everything they've put out has been lackluster since then. Every movie. The TV shows have been pretty good.
I will say I did like Shang-Chi a good bit. I like that one a lot. But yeah, Black Widow was disappointing. I haven't seen Eternals, but I've heard that one's pretty terrible.
They've reversed everything with Shang-Chi. Like, why is the Hulk back to being the Hulk?
Yeah, there is.
Like, what's going on there? What's happening?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just like things happen between the movies that we never like. We don't know why.
That's not explained,
and it's just annoying. It's like, okay, this would be better explained if it was a TV show. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I
will say in the Spider-Man 3 trailer, I'll have to text you this in case you haven't heard, but there's apparently a screenshot. There's a couple frames where they're facing off. There's Sandman, I forget what his name was, the Croc or whatever from the Amazing Spider-Man, and the Goblin. And apparently Marvel digitally edited out all three Spider-Man men that were facing him, because there's a Brazilian version of the trailer where one of them is in it, like briefly. So
I heard that too. I'm so excited. If they're not in it, I'm done with Marvel.
They have to be in it.
They have to be in it. I heard Wolverine's in the damn movie.
What? Oh, that would be the ultimate.
Hugh Jackman is going to be in this movie.
Oh, so
that's the thing about Spider-Man. Spider-Man has always been in a series called, what is it?
That would be awesome.
It's not like Spider-Man and his friends. It's like Spider-Man and, like, it was literally a Spider-Man and series. So like issue 1 would be Spider-Man and Wolverine. Issue 2 would be Spider-Man and Deadpool. Issue 3 would be Spider-Man and Hulk. Whatever.
Yeah.
Because Spider-Man is like everybody's friend. Everybody wants to hang out and do stuff with Spider-Man. So there's literally like, it's so easy for them to make a series where Spider-Man just has team ups with everybody. So the fact that these team ups have not happened, even since he's had Marvel, since he's been with Marvel, there's been no team ups with Spider-Man. And it's like, why not? So, so I'd be okay. I don't know. I really want Hugh Jackman to just be done with the Wolverine character, but they are doing a multiverse thing, so I can let it slide because of that.
Yeah.
But it's also like,
Logan was such a good send off. Yeah. Logan was a good send off for him. Want him to stay that way. But yeah, we'll see. Either way, I'm excited. I'm really excited for that one. December 17th. It'll be released, so I will definitely be there.
Which is when this episode airs. That'll be yesterday.
Yeah, yes. Would have come out. So
no. It's fine. We know we're recording ahead of time. Everyone knows this is part of our show.
It's not a secret.
But I'm just saying, it's like, so we're getting all excited about this.
Right.
People who watch this episode will be like, "Oh, you guys, nothing happened. It's so disappointing." Or they're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, you won't even believe it."
One of the two.
So let us know in the comments what happens.
Yes.
Because we'll have seen it by then. I'm seeing that as close to opening day as possible.
Right. Yep. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to this episode. Next week's our final Christmas bonus episode, and we are doing it on
The Office.
The Office. Yes. My favorite, still my favorite show of all time.
I read something today that just made me so happy. About The Office, because and we'll talk about it next week.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. Thanks again for tuning in with us this week. Merry Christmas and
Happy New Year.
Yeah,
stay warm.
Stay warm. Yes,
outside.
yes,
stay warm.
Stay warm.